COVID-19 pandemia in Matthew chapter 24. From the Internet to COVID-19, Part 3. Today, our present time, in my understanding, in Matthew chapter 24, is verse 12, with the COVID-19 pandemia. Where do we see the COVID-19 pandemia in verse 12? We do not see it as a pestilence, but through human and church behavior. Matthew chapter 24, verse 12, KJV. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And because iniquity shall abound. And there is a lot of that iniquity due to this pandemia that is bringing down world economies, reducing every nation on the verge of poverty, riots in all major urban cities, crime reaching sky-high levels, and the worst still to come. Where is COVID-19 pandemia, specifically referring to COVID-19 pandemia as cause of the iniquity in verse 12? Verse 12, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. COVID-19 is in verse 12 under the meaning of two words from the King James Bible Dictionary, wax and cold. What is that cold in verse 12? In my understanding, there are two meanings to verse 12 with that wax and cold. The first is that verse 12 could be a direct reference and consequence to verse 10 and 11, with that iniquity shall abound, referring to the internet with the socials that create new behavior patterns, giving people freedom of their thoughts with no restraining power. Because the person expressing their thoughts, actions, and judgment are not seen and not physically present in front of someone, hiding their identities and their person, or even faking to be someone else, or even faking completely. Such behavior becomes falseness of the person and fake news on every level. We do not know the person we are chatting with. He or she could be anybody. With this advantage, where is the truth? And where are the lies? Or when does the truth become a lie and vice versa? Along with many claiming authority that they do not have, titles, names that could be true as they could be false. New behavior patterns emerge, where one appears reclusive in real life with no friends, but then through some social has friends, by the hundreds and thousands, relating with them, even exchanging personal information with people who are physically not present in front of you. Could it be normal to have so many friends? Who is that person in exchanging in conversation with all these people? Why are so many interested in him? Who is he, a president, king, prime minister, a church theologian? That person could be anyone and everyone and no one, or schizophrenic, or have become a psychopath after over-abuse of social forums on the internet, where reality and real life is no longer present, and what is present is a virtual alternate reality, where one lives in a dream land, where he can be anyone's friend and hero. Matthew chapter 24 verse 12 could be 2 Timothy chapter 3, King James Version. Verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Perilous times, and these are perilous times. Unsolved issues that were created decades ago, as I have already explained in part 1 and part 2, are showing their effects today, from desertification of agricultural lands that were once lush forests, to weather anomalies, to an ever more polluted planet where its green fields are submerged by trash. Mass extinction of animal and plant life, the ocean's food chain being broken, natural resources running out, food and water shortages, and to make things worse, a humanity and church completely distracted and having taken residence in a virtual world of fake news, where both truths and lies are questionable. Verse 2: For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy. Disobedient to parents. Today, children are so hooked to the internet and in chats that if a parent is sick of seeing their child waste his childhood chatting with strangers, to take that smartphone away from that child would be as if one takes a heroin away from a heroin addict. Children become disobedient to their parents when their education comes from other sources, questionable sources, that distract children from teachings of their parents, creating conflicts in the family. The internet today could ruin every family within minutes if one is not vigilant and responsible, and not just children, but even adults. On social forums, we see verse 2, all the manifestations of behavior. Verse 2 could add eventually to a narcissistic personality. Verse 3: Without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. This is interesting. Without natural affection. This appears very much as the internet, where people relate without physically being present, or even the advantage that the internet offers, where one could order a woman for erotic chats, as if one orders a pizza. Verse 4: Traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Traitors, heady, light-minded, lovers of pleasures. This is also seen much on the internet. Verse 5: Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Verse 5 is interesting. A form of godliness. On the internet, one could fake to be an authority in the church, or give the widest claims of being a prophet, or presenting themselves as prophets and saints. But when questioned of their authority and of their preachings, they cut you off from conversation, or disappear, or remove, or block you. Verse 6: For all this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts. How many marriages are ruined by socials? Today, most of them. This could also be verse 6. Verse 7: Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Verse 7 to me could be anything from a final generation where knowledge is accessible to everyone and completely free or almost free. But nevertheless, there is much ignorance, especially when one attempts to explain creation with evolution, or that scientific knowledge would prove the non-existence of God. And with the non-existence of God comes the love of every pleasure. And as lovers of pleasure, manifest their pleasures as lovers of their own selves. Covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unfaithful, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent fears, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, having a form of godliness, but denying the power. 2 Timothy chapter 3 from verse 1 to verse 7, KJV, could be a direct reference to the internet and even television that creates similar personality behavior pathological anomalies through overexposure to television or social forums on the internet, and could very much likely be Matthew chapter 24 verse 12, with that, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Wax cold. But it could also refer to something else. If the internet and social forums social distance people from relating in a natural, affectionate manner, this is 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 3, without natural affection, or affection created in an unnatural manner, as on social forums or internet in general, but at the same time leave at least some space in the life of a person for a natural affection, as in that of person-to-person physical affection. Something else is present today that has even removed that space for a physical personal affection and has created a social distancing in real life that even furthers the distance from that social distance that the internet creates. That something is called COVID-19. This will be part 4, final part. There has been a slight change in the parts of these, let's say in this study. Originally it was supposed to be of 3 parts, but I had to add something else, and in order to complete it, I will complete it with 4 parts. Thank you.